Harry Kane, one of England's best ever strikers and consistently one of the best strikers in the Premier League for a number of seasons now. What's next for Harry Kane though? He's only got one season left on his Tottenham contract. Will he stick that out? Will he go for free at the end of the year? Will Daniel Levy allow that? I'm not too sure he will. I feel like he'll try to get some of the money back, at least for Kane. In this video, I wanted to explore some of the options that Harry Kane has, where I think he'll go, where I think he should go, and what's next for Kane in his career. Harry Kane has been amazing on all goal-scoring fronts. Just in the Premier League, he's scored 213 goals. On top of that, he's scored 58 goals whilst playing internationally for England and was the top scorer at the 2018 World Cup. He's also been the Premier League top scorer 3 times. Kane's fantastic on the European stage as well, having picked up 34 goals in the European competitions. You would think when you hear these stats that Harry Kane would have one of the most stacked trophy cabinets in the UK. Unfortunately, due to playing for Tottenham, that is not the case. Tottenham haven't won a major trophy in my lifetime, and I don't see that, especially after the season they had last year, changing anytime soon. So is it time for Harry Kane to take a move somewhere else? He's a legend already at Tottenham. He's got him to the Champions League final. He's had him finishing in the top 4 in the Premier League for the majority of seasons he's been there. But let's take a look at some of the other options Kane has. Now, I want to start with a team who this summer have been very heavily linked to Harry Kane, and that is the German behemoths Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich have already had a £70 million bid for Kane rejected, which is a fair price in my opinion. I know he's one of the best strikers in the world, but to say he's only got a year left on his contract, 70 million is actually quite a huge fee. Apparently Bayern Munich are lining up a second offer as we speak to try tempt Levy to accept the deal effectively. Kane is pretty much guaranteed to win trophies if he does make the move to Bayern Munich. They've won a huge 11 titles in a row, which is practically unmatched throughout the history of European football, or at least in the top 5 leagues it is. However, discounting how well they do in the domestic competitions, I'm not sure how much I would expect Bayern Munich to pick up another Champions League trophy anytime soon. I do think that a lot of the English clubs and Real Madrid are levels above them on that European stage at the minute. I'm not saying things can't change, because obviously an acquisition such as Kane would put them on a different level entirely. Bayern Munich did sign quite a big striker last summer in Sadio Mane from Liverpool. That move didn't exactly go according to plan. Mane's market value has dropped massively since the move. He scored 12 goals throughout the season, but a lot of those goals were in games where Munich dominated the opposition, so it wasn't a particularly game-changing striker acquisition. Whereas I do think Kane is one of those players that will score the majority of chances put in front of him. So as I alluded to before, he could be one that helps bring them back to the glory days on the European stage. This move is looking like the one that's most likely for Kane at the minute, with Levy apparently going to meet the Bayern Munich executives at some point in the next week to iron out the transfer fee. However, from reports I've seen online, I'm not too sure if Kane would want to relocate out of London. I suppose teams like Bayern Munich don't come knocking so often, so you can always go for a year or two and then maybe move on, but he is getting on a little bit. Is that move one he'll want, moving his family out of where they've lived for many years? I guess we'll have to see, but I do think that he'd have a much better career there than he would if he was to stick at Tottenham. Another team that have shown interest in Kane throughout the years is Manchester United, England's biggest club, really. However, Manchester United have just picked up Rasmus Højlund for 75 million. To be honest, I think they'd have been much better off if they'd have picked up Kane for an extra 30 million instead. I don't see him picking up both strikers, especially in this one transfer window. Maybe if Kane was to stay and then be available for a free at the end of the year, Manchester United might consider it then if it's just the wage bill that you have to pay. But I think a lot of people expected this one to happen, because Kane really isn't too far off and he's definitely on track to break the all-time Premier League goals record, and that's such a huge record to even have the opportunity to come close to. Admittedly, if Haaland stays in the UK at Manchester City or at a different club, it wouldn't surprise me if he starts to catch up, but Kane could definitely hold that throne for a little while. Are there any any other teams in England that could afford Kane, really. I mean, I think Chelsea could. They're one of the only squads that don't have an out-and-out striker that they can rely on at the minute. Obviously, Lukaku's probably on his way out of the club, and I don't think he'd be welcomed back by many Chelsea fans anyway. Chelsea are one of the few bigger teams who actually did worse than Spurs last year, so a move there, Kane would probably still continue to pick up goals, but wouldn't be any more likely to pick up trophies for the next season or two. So with the Man United run out the window, I really don't see Kane staying anywhere in England unless it is for a free transfer, should he choose to stick out another season at Tottenham. And then the last one I wanted to mention was Real Madrid. I feel like Real Madrid are linked to every good striker in the history of football, but in my head, I actually thought this move would have really made sense. Obviously, Benzema's made the move over to Saudi Arabia, but the way that those two players play, neither of them really rely on pace in any way, shape or form. It's more about the finishing. They've both got fantastic hold-up play, which allows the wingers to have a massive impact on the game as well. And that's something that Real Madrid have concentrated on in the last few seasons for sure. So with Benzema going, I thought if they got Kane in for another at least 2 or 3 seasons, he'd be able to play that role fantastically. But at the same time, they probably wouldn't have then let Benzema leave, or despite the very enticing offer from Saudi Arabia. He still is only 35. Kane's a few years younger. This really wouldn't match up with Real Madrid's transfer acquisition strategies in the last few years. If you think about all the players they've signed and heavily invested in, Camavinga, Vinicius, etc., they're all really young players who they're expecting to be at the club for a long, long stint of time. As good as Kane is, and I'm sure he'd have a huge impact on the squad and go over to Spain and pick up a bunch of goals, it wouldn't be in line with what Real Madrid have been trying to build for the last decade or so. I think they really switched transfer strategies after that big Ronaldo and Bale, etc. You've not seen, I suppose Hazard as well, but Hazard was the last older player that was a really good player already that they signed. The rest have been players that are good already, decent, but maybe not world class, and they're going to build them into that world class talent. Certainly for a move this summer, the only team that I think really makes sense or will really be likely to happen is Bayern Munich, which is a sticky one for Kane in my opinion, because Bayern Munich are a fantastic club. Obviously they're huge. They've been the biggest team in Germany for many, many seasons. Sorry if you're a Dortmund fan, you may disagree. But is that really what he wants to do? Go to a league where he's practically guaranteed to win the league every season anyway. It's not much of a challenge. He'll score a bunch of goals, but he won't be contributing to breaking that all-time Premier League record anymore. He'll have to move his family all the way over to Munich. It's a big, big ask, and I'm not sure in footballing terms that's what he'll want. If he was to go over and help them get to the European Cup final and win the Champions League, that'd be massive. That'd be a huge achievement. And he's much more likely to do that with Bayern Munich than with Tottenham. But I'm just not sure what the best direction is for Kane at this point. Maybe it is battle out another season at Tottenham and then just get the move for free. If he does stick it out for another season and he's a free transfer, I feel like a lot more clubs will end up being interested. Maybe Real Madrid would take the punt if it's just a couple of years of wages. Barcelona might. Manchester United might. Maybe even a team like Arsenal. I know Kane's an Arsenal fan and that might ruin his legacy at Tottenham, but that move could become available at that point. Now, what do I think Kane should do? It's a tough one. Maybe if he could get a short contract at Bayern Munich, he could move there for like a two-year stint. If I was him personally, I'd want to stay in England and beat that record. So I'd probably battle it out at Tottenham for another season, try have a good ending with them. I mean, you know, there is a possibility that you could win an FA Cup or something there, but I don't think there's ever a chance that Tottenham are going to win the league in the next 4 or 5 seasons. Battle it out for a season, get that free move at the end of the year and try cherry pick whichever club you want to play for in England. Obviously with Haaland at Manchester City, I don't see them being interested for a couple seasons, but you never know. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments who you think Kane should join. Should he stay in the UK? Should he go abroad? It's a tough question to answer, but let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.